On the 2nd of November 1917, a momentous declaration reverberated through the corridors of history. The British Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, made an announcement that would shape the course of events in the years to come, which came to be known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was contained in a letter sent to Lord Rothschild, a leader of the British Jewish community, and voiced the British government's support for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, setting the stage for one of the most enduring and intractable conflicts of our time between Israel and Palestine. But wait a minute, before the ink had dried on the Balfour Declaration, there was a lesser-known proposal, a fascinating one that would have rewritten the narrative of this conflict and the world as we know it today, because it is in this proposal that would have taken us far from the Middle East to the heart of Africa. In this episode of Uganda in History, we embark on a journey to uncover the remarkable history of the Ugandan Scheme. It's a story that challenges our perception and invites us to contemplate an alternative reality where the British contemplated creating a Jewish homeland at the border between Uganda and Kenya. So pause for a minute and imagine how the world would have been had this proposal become a reality. And indeed, it came to pass. So to truly understand the Ugandan Scheme, we need to journey all the way back where it began. Europe in the 16th and 18th centuries, that's where our tale begins, but the real action unfolds in the 19th century after the First Russian Revolution in 1905. This period saw the loss of many Jews in the aftermath. Then, the Second Russian Revolution and the subsequent civil wars unleashed a new wave of violence against the Jewish community. Now, nationalistic militias and irregular armies fought for control, which led to the loss of a number of Jewish lives. Now, fast forward to the earliest 20th century, and the Jews in Germany were probably the most integrated in the whole of Europe. But hold on, things took a sharp turn in the early 1918, following Germany's defeat in World War I and the 1929 economic crisis. Enter Nazis with their anti-Semitic agenda. Hate speech went on to refer to Jewish citizens as dirty Jews, started showing up in pamphlets and newspapers all around Germany. And they even went on to blame the Jews for their loss in the World War I. Now here is where it becomes incredibly grim. The Holocaust, a miserable chapter in the Jewish history and one of the most massive genocides ever, where around 6 million Jews, roughly 2/3 of all European Jews, fell victims to the Nazis. The anti-Semitic programs evolved from just words to actions. In 1933, they began passing repressive laws against the Jews, and it all culminated in the Nuremberg Laws of 1935, which stripped most of their citizenship rights using racial definitions rather than descent. Now, things took a horrifying turn in 1938 during the Kristallnacht riots. These attacks targeted Jewish homes, businesses, and places of worship, resulting in the deaths of about 90,000 individuals from Germany and Austria. With the Nazi invasion of Poland in 1939 and the start of the World War II, the real horror began. Jews were forced into ghettos and then sent to concentration and death camps, where many met their end. Now, in the occupied territories of the USSR, death squads, sometimes aided by local units, carried out mass murders of Jews, and the Nazis even took things to another level, with gas chambers in death camps, with Auschwitz in Poland being the largest and most infamous of all of them. Theodore Herzl, an Austro-Hungarian Jewish journalist, often likened to modern-day Moses for the Jewish people. Now imagine this, the late 19th century, and Herzl had this grand vision of leading the Jews to their own homeland, a new state of Israel, and beginning a massive immigration of Jews to Palestine. Now in 1897, Herzl founded the Zionist newspaper, the Die Welt, in Vienna, Austria-Hungary. But the real game changer came with the planning of the first Zionist conference in Basel, Switzerland. Now Herzl went on to be elected the president of this congress, a role he held until his passing in 1904. Now Herzl wasn't just content with just words on paper. He saw the need for backing from the great powers of the world to make the dream of the Jewish people in the land of Palestine a reality. Now this led to him to embark on a fascinating journey. In 1898, he set out to meet Kaiser William II of Germany and the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. But unfortunately, the encounter with Wilhelm was a huge letdown, as the monarch brushed off Herzl's political appeal with the snide of anti-Semitic comments. Frustrated but not defeated, Herzl shifted his focus to Great Britain, where he met with Joseph Chamberlain, the British colonial secretary, and other influential figures. Now, the British, however, had an unexpected proposal. They suggested a Jewish autonomous region in East Africa, particularly in Uganda. Herzl considered this as a temporary refuge for Jews in Russia who were in immediate danger, but he made it abundantly clear that this was not meant to divert their ultimate goal of Zionism, a Jewish homeland in the land of Palestine. Now you can imagine the storm that this proposal stirred at the Sixth Zionist Conference in 1903. It nearly tore the Zionist movement apart, but it also highlighted the passionate commitment for the Jewish community to the dream of a homeland. It's the spring of 1903. Joseph Chamberlain, the British colonial secretary, drops a bombshell on Herzl. He offers him a piece of land in East Africa, known as the Usain Gishu, which has come down to history to be known as the Ugandan Scheme. This land was about 5,000 square miles atop the Mau escarpment, with a temperate climate since it was next to the Mau forest. Now, Chamberlain in his speech remarked, "On my travels, I saw a country for you, Uganda. On the coast it's hot, but in the interior the climate is excellent for Europeans. You can plant cotton and sugar. I thought to myself, this is the best country for Herzl." Now, many have questioned why it is called the Ugandan Scheme when the proposed region actually falls within present-day Kenya. Well, the answer lies in some historical border shuffling. Now you see, back in 1894, Uganda was pronounced a protectorate, and the British started reorganizing the borders of their East African colonies, that was Uganda and Kenya. Now the Usain Gishu, a county in today's Kenya, fell between longitude 36 degrees and 45 east and was originally under Uganda, but later handed over to Kenya. Now Herzl, being a savvy political player, didn't dismiss this offer outrightly. He understood the strategic value of engaging with a great power like Britain, which effectively recognized his Zionist movement and the Jewish people as a political entity. It was all part of a bigger chess game. Herzl believed that this move would ultimately nudge the British towards recognizing the Jewish problem could only be resolved in Palestine. The plan here was to use the Ugandan Scheme as a stepping stone, not as a final destination. Now, during the Sixth Zionist Conference in August 1903, a massive storm brewed. The fiery debates were fueled by a misunderstanding. It was a matter of Zion or Uganda that had been put on the table. The delegates went on to decide to put it to the vote, and the outcome was 295 to 178 in favor of Herzl's proposal of the Ugandan Scheme. Now, what went on to be proposed was to send a commission of inquiry to East Africa. Now, Herzl was pretty certain that the report would be negative because he knew that the Jews wouldn't settle in Africa, no matter the land. Now, lo and behold, when the report of the commission returned back, it was indeed unfavorable. They went on to state that the proposed land in Uganda was unsuitable for the Jewish settlement and they wouldn't take any other place in the world other than Palestine. It turned out that all this was just a controversy and background noise because it became clear that the subject matter was unrealistic, where white settlers in Kenya protested vehemently against the very notion of the Jewish settlement and didn't sit well with the British Foreign Office. Herzl, on the other hand, wasn't distraught by the turn of events. He declared that the East African project was dead in a circular letter to the Zionist executives. The Madagascar Plan. This was a Maccabee scheme proposed by the Nazi German government with the sinister intention of forcibly relocating the Jewish population of Europe to the distant island of Madagascar. The mastermind behind this plan was none other than Franz Rademacher, the head of the Jewish department of the German Foreign Office. He went on to unveil this horrifying idea in June 1940, shortly before the fall of France, envisioning Madagascar, then a French colony, being handed over to Germany as part of the future peace terms. Now, the concept of resettling the Polish Jews in Madagascar had actually been explored by the Polish government in 1937. However, the investigative task force dispatched to assess the island's potential came back with disheartening news. They determined that only a fraction of the Jewish populations could be accommodated, with an estimate ranging from as few as 500 families to a maximum of 5,000 to 7,000 families. But the wheels of history turned, and with the Nazis' partial failure in encouraging the Jews' immigration from Germany before the World War II, the idea of deporting the Jews to the Madagascar was resurrected in 1940. So on June 3, 1940, Rademacher officially recommended Madagascar as the destination for Jews of Europe, with the ominous approval of Adolf Hitler. Now, Adolf Eichmann released a memorandum on August 15, 1940, proposing the resettlement of a staggering 1 million Jews per year for 4 years. They envisioned the governing of the island as a harsh police state under the SS, assuming that the severe conditions would lead to many Jews perishing. However, even at the proposal stage, the plan faced a significant hurdle. The British naval blockade made it unviable, and this malevolent scheme was further hindered when the Nazis lost the Battle of Britain in September 1940. And eventually the Madagascar Plan was permanently shelved in 1942 with the onset of the final solution, the horrific policy of systematically exterminating the Jews. Now, in retrospect, the Madagascar Plan served as a sinister precursor to the unimaginable horrors that would unfold during the Holocaust. Now, it is essential to recognize that there were alternative options considered for the settlement of the Jewish populations aside from Israel. One of these options sparked interest in the earliest 20th centuries, and it was quite a voyage from Europe to the far reaches of Australia. Now, Dr. Isaac Steinberg, a Jewish-Russian politician who in 1935 kickstarted the Freeland League in the United States of America. He had this vision, particularly for the vast remote lands of Australia. He had originally put forth the idea of resettling about 75,000 Jewish refugees in northwestern Australia. The vision gathered substantial support and became known as the Kimberley Plan. However, the threat of the Japanese attack on Darwin, Australia, escalated during the World War II, and the Kimberley Plan was reluctantly shelved. That's when another option emerged, proposed by a man named Critchley. He suggested the southwestern region of Tasmania as a potential haven for the Jewish immigrants. Now, historical documents go on to reveal that Tasmania's Premier, Robert Cosgrove, was surprisingly open to the idea. In fact, he had already toured Port Davey, an area in southwestern Tasmania, in 1941. Cosgrove went as far as to state in an official report, "My government accepts in principle to the proposal that a settlement of Jewish immigrants should be established in Tasmania." So in 1941, Critchley and Dr. Isaac Steinberg set out on a trip to Tasmania, but fate had other plans. Critchley went on to feel ill during the journey, and their visit had to be cancelled. However, in early 1942, Critchley returned to determine and survey the area once more. But this time, he embarked on an expedition alone, venturing into the remote and rugged wilderness of the southwestern Tasmania. As a result, he reached Port Davey, and he had the support of Charlie King, the only real local resident in the area. They had an agreement in place that if Critchley found himself in distress, he would create a smoke signal and King would promptly send for help. However, this plan too wasn't viable. Now, while there is limited evidence to suggest that the Japanese ever seriously considered the establishment of a Jewish state or a Jewish autonomous region, there is a fascinating tale that weaves through the chapter of history. In 1979, Rabbi Marvan Tokaya and Mary Swartz published a book titled The Fogel Plan. Now, in this partly fictionalized account, Tokaya and Swartz introduced the concept of the Fogel Plan or the Fogel Plot. This term was assigned to a memoranda written in the 1930s in Imperial Japan, proposing the settlement of Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi-occupied Europe in Japanese territories. According to their narrative, the plan was named after a Japanese word for a pufferfish, a delicacy known for its potential lethality if not prepared correctly. Now, the author based their claims on statements made by Captain Karoshinge Inosuka. They allege that the discussion surrounding the plans first surfaced in 1934 and further solidified by 1938. Now, prominent figures like Inosuka and others were said to have supported the plan. However, due to other historical events, including the signing of the Tripartite Pact in 1941, the plan never reached full implementation. Now, it is important to note that the memoranda in question was not originally referred to the Fogel Plan. In 1903, Joseph Chamberlain, the British colonial secretary, had an intriguing notion. He contemplated establishment of a Jewish state in El Arish, located in the northern Sinai Peninsula, right next to Palestine. However, this ambitious proposal hit a roadblock when Lord Curzon, the British representative in Egypt, vetoed it. Now, Lord Curzon's concern centered on the challenges of securing a reliable supply of fresh water and the potential tensions it might stir with the native Egyptian population. But the dream didn't end there. Determined minds explored other options. Expeditions were dispatched to various corners of the globe, from Canada to Iraq, Cyprus, and Angola in search for a suitable location for the Jewish settlement. Unfortunately, these efforts yielded little in a way of concrete results. Now, amidst these explorations, there was one project that achieved some measure of success, the Galveston Scheme. This initiative paved the way for the resettlement of Jews in southern United States, specifically in the state of Texas. The project received essential support from Jacob Schiff, an American Jewish banker. Now, between 1907 and 1914, approximately 9,300 Jews arrived in southwestern through the efforts of the Territorial Organization Immigration Bureau of America. Now, the project offered a glimmer of hope and promise. However, the momentum of this movement began to wane, and it was further challenged by the Balfour Declaration in 1925, which impacted the cause of the Jewish settlement and immigration. As we journey through the complex history for the quest for a Jewish homeland, it becomes evident that the vision of a Jewish state held a special place in the hearts of many. The ultimate destination was a matter of great debate, with one prevailing belief: Palestine under the Ottoman control was seen as the most desirable location for a Jewish state. Yet, Theodore Herzl's attempt to obtain a charter for this purpose from the Ottoman government proved unsuccessful. Now then, in the early 20th century, the landscape began to shift. Following the failed Russian Revolution of 1905, an increasing number of Eastern European and Russian Jews sought refuge in Palestine, joining the small Jewish community already there. Now, these new Jewish settlers were steadfast in their commitment to reviving the Hebrew language. Now, the course of history took a significant turn with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire during the World War I. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, expressing its intent to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine. However, the endeavor faced a staunch opposition from the Arab population. Now, throughout the 1920s and 30s, British rule persisted in Palestine, but the Holocaust in Europe prompted many Jews to seek refuge in Palestine illegally during the World War II. Now, by the end of the World War II in 1945, the United States threw its support behind the Zionist cause. Now, Britain, unable to find a practical solution to the growing tensions, referred the matter to the United Nations. So in November 1947, the UN vetoed to partition Palestine, allocating more than half to the Jewish population, even though they constituted less than half of the Palestine's total population. Now, this historic decision marked a turning point, leading to the gradual immigration of Jews to Palestine, as they escaped persecution in the various parts of Europe. The Aliyah, or the Law of Return, played a pivotal role in facilitating the return of Jews from diaspora to the land of Israel, which now includes the modern state of Israel. The law grants the Jews, their children, and their grandchildren automatic rights regarding residency and citizenship in Israel. So on May 14, 1948, as Britain withdrew control over the area, the Jews secured full control of the UN-allocated portion of Palestine. In Tel Aviv, Jewish Agency Chairman David Ben-Gurion proclaimed the State of Israel, marking the establishment of the first Jewish state in over 2 millennia. The next day, forces from Egypt, Transjordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq invaded the newly declared state. Now, despite being well less equipped, the Israelis managed to fend off the Arab forces and even captured key territories such as Galilee, the Palestinian coast, and the connecting strip of the land between the coast and West Jerusalem. This initial victory set a stage for further expansion, and in 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel greatly increased its borders, capturing the old city of Jerusalem, the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. Israel's territories grew significantly, encompassing these newly acquired lands. Now, the quest for a Jewish homeland was a relentless and intricate journey, marked by dedication and resilience of many individuals. Theodore Herzl, who had envisioned this dream, did not live to witness the full realization of the State of Israel. He went on to pass away on July 3, 1904, in El Adash, a village in Austria. Herzl had been diagnosed with a heart condition early in the year, and in his will, he specified the simplest of funerals, without speeches or flowers. He wished to be buried in the humblest fashion beside his father, with the hope that one day the Jewish people would take his remains back to Israel. So in accordance with his final wishes, Theodore Herzl's remains were brought to Israel in 1949 and laid to rest on Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, a place named in his honor. His coffin was draped in the blue and white pearl, adorned with the Star of David, encircling a Lion of Judah along with the 7 gold stars, symbolizing Herzl's original proposal for the flag of the Jewish state of Israel. Now, as we continue to explore the fascinating history of the Jewish community, we stumble upon a remarkable story from 1917, the very year the Balfour Declaration was signed. In Uganda, a Busoga chief by the name of Semei Kakungulu and his followers underwent a profound transformation, converting from Christianity to Judaism. Now, this extraordinary community came to be known as the Abayudaya, a name that translates to the people of Judah. Now, today, the Abayudaya community boasts about 2,000 devoted followers, primarily residing in the eastern district of Uganda, known as Mbale. Now, what's truly striking about the Abayudaya is that despite not sharing genetic or ethnic ties with the native Jews, they are fervently committed to the practices of Judaism. They diligently observe their own version of the kashrut dietary laws and behold the Sabbath. Their faith is primarily aligned with the Reform and conservative branches of Judaism. Now, however, a significant turn of events occurred in 2020. An Israeli court ruled that the Abayudaya community, which had faithfully practiced Judaism in Uganda for over a century, would not be eligible for immigration to Israel. Now, this decision raises a thought-provoking a lot of questions, especially when juxtaposed with historical events. Now, while the British government sought to allocate land to the Jews without consulting any local chief or king, which came to be known as the Ugandan Scheme, a Ugandan Jewish community's quest to immigrate to Israel resulted into a court having to determine their eligibility based on the level of their Jewishness. Now, this fascinating narrative highlights the intricacies and complexities of identities belonging within the broader Jewish diaspora. Now, it reminds us that the history of the Jewish people is a rich tapestry woven within a diverse set of narratives from all around the world. Now, who knows what would have happened had the Ugandan scheme succeeded? Anyway, your guess is as good as mine, but I'm sure the world would be a different place as it is today. So if you found this video captivating and informative, don't forget to give it a like, share, and subscribe to help the channel grow. This has been Regan for Uganda in History, and see you in another video.